Bitmine is currently the world's largest corporate holder of Ethereum. As of early December in 2025, they hold approximately 4 million ETH, which is valued at about 10 to 15 billion US dollars, depending on how the market's doing. However, none of this ETH is currently staked. Bitmine do, however, have a staking solution that's on the way, and the staking solution will be fully state-of-the-art and fully compliant with US regulations. So, firstly, I thought I'd just explain, what is Ethereum staking and why does it matter and why would you even want it? And I guess to understand that, firstly, the first thing to understand is that Ethereum, the way it validates transactions is through something called a proof of stake mechanism. So in traditional finance, when you sell a stock, you use a broker, and then the broker will place your order to the market, and then from there, your order needs to be validated. What needs to be validated is that your shares have gone to the next party, and the next party has given you money for the shares, and also the amounts are accurate. Like you've received $100, and the other party has received 2 shares, for example. And so this will need to go through a clearinghouse. In the United States, the major clearinghouse is called the DTCC. Pretty much all trades will go through there. But on Ethereum, there is no centralized authority like this. So instead of going through a clearinghouse, what Ethereum does is it validates everything up front. The way it does this is through something called validators. In order to become a validator, you can stake your Ethereum. Staking essentially means you lock up your Ethereum onto the network like a mini term deposit. If you've got 32 Ethereum, which is the minimum requirement, you can lock it up, create a staking node, and start validating transactions for the Ethereum network, essentially doing the same service as what happens currently today in the traditional finance sense. In addition, like the more Ethereum that it's staked, the harder and also more expensive it is to attack the network. Another benefit of staking, people will have, large amounts of Ethereum and, they could just hold it and do nothing with it. But instead of doing that, they get to hold on to it by using it to validate the network. And in return for that, the network pays them a small yield, a staking yield. So at the moment, staking yields are currently 3 to 4%. And although Tom Lee has said for Bitmine, there'll be, some small costs involved for institutional staking. So Bitmine could probably expect in the high 2% range, 2.8 to 3% is like a net result from their staking operations. Another benefit to staking would include the supply dynamics. So every ETH that's staked becomes illiquid, which in theory should put pressure on the Ethereum price to go up. Also, as I mentioned before, the more Ethereum that's staked means more security, as there's more validators validating transactions, and there's a lot more points of failure in the network. This also has an institutional appeal. 3%, it seems a little bit low. However, it's kind of like a digital bond, and it's becoming, or already is, pretty much fully compliant with US law. And so like a 3% return on your capital that is still growing is definitely not bad at all. So let's talk about the MAVAN, which is Bitmine's made in America validated network. So just have a look at Bitmine's latest earnings update from, I think it was November. This is just a summary of their MAVAN strategy. So MAVAN is named that way because Bitmine wants the entire validated network to be made in America. They don't want any validators outside of America to avoid any regulatory issues that may arise. It's just much easier. Like the rules are currently becoming very clear. If you be a validator overseas in Europe or maybe even Asia, they're going to have completely different rules and different tax implications. And so yeah, they're going to have just everything will be different, and it's much simpler to make everything built in America. They also just want to support America too. So yeah, they've selected 3 staking providers, and the 3 staking providers that align with what they're after. This is their evaluation criteria for what they want. Um, it seems pretty straightforward. They basically just want to be able to stake in a way that's safe and secure, that will actually get them the yields, because point number 3 is actually quite important. Like a lot of people online will ask, why did they not just stake it themselves already? Well, Bitmine has a huge amount of ETH, currently approximately 4 million. That amounts, they intend to increase that amount to about 5% of Ethereum supply. So that creates a few challenges because they will need well over 100,000 validators. Each validator is its own unique cryptographic key, and every validator will require distributed servers. You also need 24/7 uptime, high bandwidth, and you need to monitor them a lot to ensure that the nodes don't go down. The Ethereum network will punish you if you try to run it all from a centralized place. So you kind of need institutional players with dedicated infrastructure to be able to actually stake properly. Otherwise, you run the risk of encountering something called slashing, where if you don't follow the validating rules properly, it's entirely possible that some of your staked Ethereum can actually be destroyed. So not as easy as just running it all on one computer. There's so much bandwidth required, so much compute required, that you kind of need specialist industrial equipment to do this, which makes me believe we're to ask, who are the staking partners? I do believe Galaxy Digital is a potential partner. They were in the pipe unlock, or one of the lines of business is exactly this, providing staking solutions to institutional clients. Another potential partner could be Kraken. They're a US-based crypto exchange that also does this. And as for a third guess, I would probably say maybe Coinbase. Coinbase have, especially Brian Armstrong, the CEO, he's had a big role in helping to write some of the legislation that's currently being looked at in America. And on top of that, Coinbase is probably the biggest exchange in the US at the moment. And yeah, we can actually see on the slide here, they mention that there's tons of off-the-shelf offerings that exist, which is why someone like SharpLink has already started staking. But Bitmine wants to build their own thing, which is fine. And this small delay of 6 months to a year, in the long run, it's really nothing. The Ethereum super cycle hasn't really even started yet. So it's best to do it once and do it right. And once they do it right, Bitmine could start to attract a lot of institutional interest for their staking solution as well. So all of this aligns with Bitmine's goals of trying to create a staking network where everything is domiciled in the United States, and it's also fully compliant with United States law. Um, so I guess looking at the bigger picture, this delay is to ensure that Bitmine gets their staking solution right, because once operational, a staking solution that's fully compliant with the US law can start generating huge amount of income every year. And on top of that, the Ethereum that is being generated is also rapidly appreciating in price. Just at these current levels, Bitmine owns approximately 4 million ETH. So if they earn a yield of about 3% on that, it could be roughly 400 million USD annually, just at the current levels. But that's constantly growing too. And once they get to 6 million Ethereum and they're earning 3% on that, and then Ethereum's also, if Ethereum can grow to the prices that Tom Lee says it can grow, then Bitmine's market cap is going to go much, much higher. To put this into perspective, a company like Palantir, they made around 1 billion in this year in net profit, and Bitmine could start making roughly half of that, which is quite incredible. A benefit for Ethereum as well is it's going to lock up about 3% of the supply initially. Um, just taking it off the market essentially forever. Bitmine and Tom Lee have said they don't intend to sell it, so that's 5% of all Ethereum gone, locked up from the open market for buying and selling, putting upward pressure on the price. So yeah, in summary, this MAVAN initiative is pretty exciting for Bitmine shareholders, because starting from early next year or maybe Q2, whenever they decide to launch it, Bitmine is going to start generating yield. And so a lot of people might also say, well, oh, it's only 3%, it's only 2.8%. Like, that is nothing. Bitcoin, can do that in one day, which is true. But there's also this staking flywheel effect. So once Bitmine nails their staking solution, what's stopping other institutions coming to them and staking their ETH through Bitmine once they have it all set up? And I think people haven't really thought about this yet. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. In addition to that, it just opens up a lot of possibilities for what Bitmine can do before this excess money that they'll be making from staking. Anyway, looking forward to seeing how it all plays out, and yeah, excited for it.